Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And it's a rather soggy Monday evening, but Edwin is with me for his property rant. Hi Edwin, how are you doing?
G'day, Martin. It's a very confusing week this week. Yeah, what's up is down, what's down is up, and you alluded to that in your video today. And then also, what's left is right, what's right is left, and I don't know, Martin. It's very, very confusing.
Yeah, I reckon it's one big maze. And the question is there an exit, or are we destined just to go round and round the maze forever, right, and never find a way out?
Well, that's right, because it really is one of those very, very interesting weeks, and it's going to get more interesting by towards the end of the year. Obviously, with regard to property, people are going to be very, very confused with a lot of the things that are going on. They're going to see listing numbers going down, but let me say in advance, don't panic. That's just a seasonal changing listing numbers. We have been tracking very close to 2020 numbers, which is rather interesting. I kind of thought that was a positive for the last 4 weeks. But moving forward, as I said, people are going to be a little bit confused. They're going to think what's going on. And I'm actually encouraged with what's happening now, and the fact that we're paying very close attention to the new listing numbers coming on board, as we're going to talk about later on as well, what that actually means with regards to people as the buying power, their ability to buy, and more importantly, the vendors' motivations and the agents' motivations as well.
Well, that'll be a very interesting conversation, because I'm getting some really interesting stuff coming through from the people I've spoken with. And one of the things that I found, I've had 3 conversations in the last couple of weeks, all with people who got big mortgages, all of whom were told by their lenders that they were fine and could afford the mortgages. Right? But actually they realised they can't afford the mortgages because things are not going the way they expected. So I had 3 separate people ask about what liability do the banks have with regard to their promise that that loan is, appropriate. And I'm saying, well, no, you've got to understand the banks are only looking at it from their risk point of view. They're not really doing the right thing from a due diligence perspective to make sure that all of your finances are in a row. Oh, they said they didn't realise that. So this could be a really big issue.
Well, that's right, and this is one of the things that even the mainstream property reporters don't really get a grasp on. Just because you've got an indicative approval does not mean that you've got a formal approval by the bank. The formal approval by the banks are given, pretty much after the valuation is substantiated. And this is the fallacy that a lot of people say, oh yeah, I can afford certain properties that are being sold off the plan, for example, and they get an approval and they do all the maths and they do all the numbers. And most of the rule of thumb is that most approvals are only valid for 3 months, which effectively it's not a formal approval; it's an indicative approval subject to various clauses, and the main one being the valuation once the property is completed, which off the plan properties will take anything up to 2 years in some cases to complete, or even 3 years from the time that you buy to the time they complete. These are the high-rise developments, of course, but then there are also freestanding homes and subdivisions that also fall into that category. Now, in terms of buying property with so-called bank approvals and moving forward, we're going to be talking about that as well. As I say, it's a topsy-turvy world. It's what's up is down, what's left is right, and this is where the maze that you have to really understand how to navigate, because the mainstream have been pushing this narrative that forego your clauses in Queensland with regards to finance clauses, which they do have in Queensland. I believe they also have them in Melbourne. Forego your due diligence, which would be the equivalent of your 66W certificates here in New South Wales, where you forego your cooling off period to only take the property off the market with a 0.25% deposit, and then have your 5, 7 or 10 days cooling off in order to know whether or not you can actually buy it. So people are coming unstuck because they're getting all sorts of stories from the mainstream as to what people have done, what they could do, and they think to themselves that they could do it as well. Little do they know that in this topsy-turvy world that we live in, the banking system is very complicated. So you better get a hold of a good mortgage broker, somebody that's going to really advise you properly in walk with you, and you also better have a conveyancer and a solicitor that knows what they're doing, other than just trying to earn a little bit of money by conveyance and just as a part-time job. So these are the things. Obviously, we're going to talk about one of those examples as to what we were able to do with a purchase at a high point, and we actually bought it effectively about $150,000 cheaper. 6 weeks later.
Well, it is very, very concerning where people essentially are taking as gospel what the bank says in terms of you can afford this, right? But actually the truth is that they're really not looking at it all from the buyer's point of view, right? What they're doing is looking at it purely from their risk point of view. And they've made some assumptions about how much people spend on X, Y, Z and W, right? But in the real world, of course, people don't necessarily spend like that. So you've got this fundamental dilemma between what the bank says and what actually people are finding in the real world they can afford. That is really going to bite, I think, ahead, right? So as well as your point about, conditional approvals aren't the same as full approvals, and I'm seeing a lot of that too, you've got this bigger issue, which is you've got a loan, but are you sure you can afford it? Because just because the bank says you can afford it, that means nothing.
No, and I think we spoke about a similar topic 6-7 months ago, where I shared and I said, unfortunately, this is bricks and mortar is not something that you can eat. You can have a house, but you can't eat it. And people are foregoing main meals, and children are foregoing a good dietary and stable diet because parents are just sailing so close to the edge because they got conned into buying over the odds because they got emotionally carried away on the day, and any reserve that they may have had, they squandered it on an emotional frenzy. And then they find out a month or 2 months later when they finally get a builder or a building or an inspector to come in and inspect as to why that they can have they've got bad odors in the house, and the building inspector tells them, well, you know what, the subfloor area is a mess. And again, this is something that we're going to look at with not only with houses, but also going to share a video today with what we found under an old red brick building that was built in the 50s and the early 70s. These red brick and the yellow brick buildings that were built on piers and on with suspended slabs, and you in some of them you can't get into the subfloor area and see what the issues are. Yes, it's a common area. Yes, everybody will bear the brunt of those issues, but no, it's not cheap to fix, given the fact that it's a very tight to get into, and some subfloor areas are very very large. Obviously, cover the envelope of the building and the footprint of the building, and therefore it can be very, very costly. So they go into these purchases, emotional purchases. They get carried away. They believe what the selling agent's selling them on the day. They get fooled into making purchases way above their means, and moving forward, it's costing them a fortune. Now, let me say this: I have it on good authority that the building and pest inspectors, and if you've relied on a building and pest inspector inspection report provided by the vendors or provided by the agents, just because they have clauses there that say, "Oh, we warrant, we are not liable for this or for that without access to this," but if you can be proven that they negligently omitted certain aspects of the building or that they inspected, that could be found liable, and that has happened already. I mean, these are people from the building inspection industry and the building industry that are telling me that now a lot of them are getting taken to task, and this is what you and I have discussed for year in, year out, with regards to this dodgy and shonky building reports that buyers get. So they get hoodwinked into all this, Martin, and then there's the pressures, obviously, what you and Tarek and the other your other videos are on, with the economic, the local and global economy, how that's changing, how inflation is not transitory, and we're going into uncharted waters. What I've noticed is petrol's going, in some places now it's fetching, asking is 2.10 cents a litre. I mean, this is shit that I haven't seen before. And if you were paying 170, 180, you were sort of many families were counting their pennies, and now at 210, you've got to start to think, what are the families, young families or people that got conned into buying too high a price, what do they now have to forego in order to keep the mortgage and keep it going and make the repayments? Because there's certainly, I know families are, as I said, they're sailing very close to the edge. They're on thin ice, and you just can't eat the bricks and you can't eat the mortar, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be doing my mortgage stress update tomorrow, and the news is not good. So I'll put a link to that below if people want to come on live and ask a question. But the final point is just on this. Make your own cash flow. Do your own finances, right? Don't rely on a mortgage broker or a bank to say, yeah, you can afford it, right? You've got to do it yourself. And I find again and again and again, it's people who've not done that get into difficulty. Now, just before we go on, we should also we're going to talk about termites that spit, right? And we're going to talk about crypto exchanges that have disappeared.
Oh, look, it's a topsy-turvy world, Martin. What's up? I mean, that video just said it all that you put out today. What's up is down, and it's all messed up. Even my cousins and friends in Chicago and in Florida, they've been telling me, even they don't know what's going on. Also, they sort of think that they've got a functional administration and somebody that's functional at the helm, but it's a topsy-turvy time, and now the Kryptonians are getting smashed from every direction. Well, I mean, I'm a part of it now, I guess I could say. I've been dabbling in crypto. My portfolio went up by 60%, and then it went down by 40%. So I was, in real dollar terms, I was up by $1,500 a week ago. And now I'm just back to where I started. So it's rather interesting. Now I can imagine what a lot of kryptonites or Kryptonians that I know, and I chat with quite a number of them that actually been buying homes with the gains in crypto. And I just pray and hope that the ones that are just getting in and purchasing, I hope that they got the balance of the money out before they put the deposit down, because obviously if that market is not merciful, and now we hear that this Melbourne exchange has also gone into liquidation. I just can't wait to hear. In this world of yours of ups and downs, Martin, I just can't wait to hear when the RBA would be liquidated. Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
Well, do we need a central bank? I have to say that the more I look at this, the more I think that they're actually part of the problem rather than part of the solution. I actually spoke with Peter Schiff today. He's based in the US when we talked about the Fed, but I asked him, do we need a central bank? And he said, no, not really. It'll be a lot better without it. I think I'd rather the same with the RBA. They're part of the problem. They've created all of this stupidity that we've got. And of course, they're stuck now. They don't want to put rates up, but they may have to put rates up. And I'm also seeing quite a few people with mortgages getting twitchy about mortgage rates. The fixed rates have gone up, of course, already. We better get on. Otherwise, we're going to make this a 2-hour epic, and I won't have time to edit it before I go to sleep tonight, right? So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been seeing, right? Because there's a lot of really interesting stories where prices are moving around all over the place.
Well, this is the thing. We've come to the end of the year. This is where we have a lot of fun in terms of buying and watching the antics of real estate agents and what happens at auctions. It's interesting how the auction numbers have really surged this week, particularly in Melbourne. There's a lot going on in there. Closer to home in Sydney, obviously, what we're keeping an eye on is a number of listings on market. I won't disclose the address because obviously our clients have got interest in these properties, but what I have shared is in general terms what's been going on and how things have just sort of unfolded, so that our followers both on Twitter and on your channel can have an idea and try to sort of share as much information as I can without cutting our clients out. So there's a property that which I shared the background of on Twitter. I said behind the scenes titled that tweet, and it's basically an interesting property where the owners were offered prior to the agent taking charge of the sale of this property, they were actually offered 2.5 sight unseen, as is, basically money on the table before the agent took the listing and took it to market. It was rejected. The vendor's expectation at that time was 2.7. Now we're of the understanding is that the vendor's expectation is actually below 2.5. And quite frankly, there's not a lot of interest given the nature of that property and the conditions and the inhabitants that it comes with. And you've got a video of the inhabitants that it comes with. What's interesting is the access given by agents or by vendors to building inspectors, where they aren't able to identify certain issues. As I said, and the new owners only find these things out post the purchase. And obviously, this is something that we've looked at, and this is something that's of concern for us, and also establishes the price point that we would go to, making good assessments of what or what we feel the property is worth, the land value, the home, and the rectification work. So that was one of them. But also interesting the fact that the expectations all around the agents and the vendors have also dropped by 200,000-300,000 as to the term of the sale, given the fact that 7 weeks ago they got offered that much, Martin.
Yeah, this is very interesting, and I'm seeing it in some of my conversations too, that prices are definitely coming back, and the vendors are having to adjust to a new reality if they really want to shift property. Down in the local area here, there are a few that were expected to sell and didn't sell. People are suddenly thinking, oh, hang on a moment, that's a bit expensive for where it is and what it is. So maybe a little bit of reality is beginning to dawn, and maybe that over-hot market is beginning to ease back. Of course, the real estate agents are pedaling really hard to try and push people in to buy properties and, keep the momentum going. But I reckon that whilst they're pedaling hard, their chain is now not linked to much, right? So they're just pedaling really hard, nothing happening at the other end.
And well, this is one of the conversations that we had with Louis last week, which was one of the things that got brought up, and he agreed on with the fact that yourself, I think a lot of the numbers that are on market that came on market in the last 6 weeks really caught a lot of agencies and vendors by surprise, and they started to panic given the fact that how rapidly they began to climb from historical lows. I have never seen listings on market, but particularly for freestanding homes as low, let alone for apartments. Apartments went below or close to 6,500 on market listings, which was absolutely phenomenal. As I've said before, one of my friends, the agency that he's a manager in, they've got 2,500 apartments for sale just themselves. Obviously, you get to a point where the owners and the marketing companies and the spruikers of apartments can't throttle that market. The elastic band finally snaps, and all of a sudden, within 4 weeks, they went from 6,500. This is apartments on market listings in Sydney. Went from 6,500 and climbed right up to 8,364, which is what was above last year's numbers, and going down. They're not going down as rapidly. They're not retreating as rapidly as obviously homes up because of the seasonal adjustments to homes on market. So this is where our viewers, our followers, need to keep an eye on as to what comes on, what stays on market post the auction, and because the vendors are going to be very very motivated, and so are the agents. So the correlation between the numbers on market certainly does play affect this market. And you and I have spoken about many a times how it only takes 1,000 or so either way to either spook the market or spook the vendors or spook the purchasers into the FOMO, or the vendors into the fear of missing out in terms of selling out. So it's an interesting dynamic, and that's why the discussions that I had with you in the past, with regards to the psychology and the philosophy behind why people make certain decisions based on emotion, and it's like a whole bunch of sheep just following following to others to the cliff. because they think everybody else is telling them giving them the right story, giving them the right narrative, until it comes home and hits them in the arse.
Well, that's true. And I also see, again, from my conversations, that what I call A-class properties, they're the ones that probably would command the best price at the right point in the cycle. Some of those are being taken off the market now, and what you're being left with are the dogs and the Bs and the C-class. The people that they're the ones that people have to shift and are desperate to shift, and that's why some of the prices are moving. So the quality of what's on market is also changing at the moment, whereas previously there were quite a good number of A-class properties that were actually fully priced and probably appropriately so. So the other thing I would say to people is, if you're looking at the moment, just make sure that you're not ending up with the damp end of the stick, simply because some of the really high quality stuff is now gone.
Look, yes, and they've come off, but the agent's still holding on to the listings and still want to sell, because their motivation is obviously to sell. So it's, as I said, now is different conversations arise between my team and the selling agents. It's a different conversation altogether. And this is one of the examples, Martin, that brings ties what we spoke about, banks and motivation and emotion. As well, and agents' motivation as well. And this example ties it up, I think, nicely. And this is a property that we bought during last week. It first got sold for $830,000, and lo and behold, 5 weeks later, 4 or 5 weeks later, it comes back on the market because the purchaser couldn't complete. They couldn't complete because one of the things that obviously on the valuation, the valuers or some banks, and obviously the second tier and third tier banks are asking for more documents than your first tier banks. In other words, they don't just want the front page of a document of a contract anymore. They want the entire contract as well as any other supporting evidence. And in this case, they had issues with the construction. They got emotional. They paid $830. They did the deposit, and the property came back on the market. And the agents that we deal with on a regular basis, that we know very well, gave one of our team members a call and said, "I've got an urgent sale." And lo and behold, we bought it for under 700. Put back on the market, from one day to the next. We knew what was wrong with it. We made we made calculations with regards to the rectification work, what it was worth, what it was really worth, and in my opinion, we just got it a little bit above land value, and got a 4-bedroom house for our client for free. That it does need a bit of work, but nevertheless, it's still a structure that it has value. So, can you imagine? I mean, this is great for our client, but put yourself in the position of the first purchaser of these properties and other properties, and this is the agent's motivation. Also, obviously, without a sale, just because it sold once or they got but it doesn't settle, they don't get the commission. It's got to go through the whole process. So their motivation was to obviously to also make sure that the sale is concluded, so that they can get the commission. So it's a topsy-turvy, and it's a world that we're in at the moment. And as you say, it's a maze what's out there.
Yeah, and we also know somewhere mortgagee in possession sales are now starting to appear as well. So that's another sign of distress potentially.
Yeah, well, that's right, and this is in the apartment market. Well, at the first week of August, I have never seen apartment listings so low. And once again, we've been looking more closely at apartments because we've got a number of clients that are specifically looking at apartments for personal reasons and of their own, and they've got us to look for apartments. So we're looking at apartments across different parts of Sydney for certain clients, and we came across these ones that now. Up to about 3 weeks ago, let's call it 4 weeks, let's stretch it out to 4 weeks ago, our North Shore client Upper North Shore clients didn't really have much choice, Martin. But now, yeah, we're basically, yeah, they've got a smorgasbord in front of them as to what to choose from, and one in particular, it lays in this complex where there's mortgagee in possessions. So obviously, this has been long in the tooth in terms of legal issues, but now it's on market. As you and I know, that just because something, the banks are going to walk into a property or take over a property doesn't mean that it goes on market straight away. It could take a year or two, and given the legal issues and the delays with the legal system, mortgagee in possessions, are generally in the making, 2 or 3 years before they get listed on. And this is an interesting phase. And again, I say now from the first week of August, 6,500 or so properties, apartments in Sydney, in the Sydney region on market, on domain. And now, although numbers have retreated, there's 8,200, which is pretty much on par with last year's peak numbers. And it's only Monday. And most new listings will come on by Thursday of this week. So this is what's happening with apartments. So it's now a wait and see. And I think we're going to, as you and I, we've discussed off camera, is that the pressure is going to start being put on the holders of these apartments, and they're going to start coming on market. I quite frankly think that the apartment numbers aren't going to retreat like they did last year. I think they're only going to increase, and we could potentially go back to the 2018 numbers, which was close to 14,000.
Absolutely. Well, apartments, I would say, particularly high-rise, buyer beware. And, of course, there's that one, your other story in North Sydney. Don't look under the hood, eh?
No, don't look under the hood. And this is something interesting that, again, these are your red brick apartments that were built in the 60s, early 70s, and your yellow brick apartments that were built in the mid 70s. A lot of them, these are your 3-story walk-ups or even 2-story walk-ups. The older style apartments that don't have lifts, for better explanation to our viewers, generally dark red brick or the yellow brick that came in that period, and they've got they were built on piers. Now a lot in the inner west that I've sold in the past when I was on that side of the fence. In the inner west, they actually had timber floors on piers. That was the first level. So, but a number of them in the North Shore, in the bigger ones, the bigger complexes, they have transfer slab, or they have suspended slabs. So you can, if you look hard enough, you can find your way into the subfloor area. And this one, well, it wasn't too hard to find. It just the access wasn't noted on the strata reports, and the strata report that was given to us and to our clients with from the strata company only went back for 4 years. Now, we obviously wanted to do a lot more due diligence on this, because we noticed some structural cracks on one side of the building, and I said to our clients, I said, look, I can guarantee you there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of in water there's moisture sitting in the subfloor area. Sure enough, that's what we found. We were able to walk into part of it. It was that after you sort of ducked your head and crawled in there, you can actually stand underneath it, and we're able to see what the concrete cancer that had been. They've tried to rectify. They've certain parts of the slab, the concrete slab, had been reshored with dwarf walls, and new walls had been introduced underneath to as they poured new slabs. So, but this wasn't in the strata report provided by the agent, by the strata company, dating back 4 years. So if you got this, all you got was the fact that the common areas and the stairwells had been recently retiled and carpeted. And so on the surface, it looked great, but underneath, it was very cancerous.
Yeah, look under the hood. Very important. Get those property inspection reports. Don't rely on the one from the vendor, right? It doesn't really give you any protection at all, as we've said before. Now, let's go on and talk about WeChat Chatters, right? Because again, there's so much to talk about. But it is really, really interesting, right? What's going on WeChat Chat.
Look, this is rather, it's interesting, and I know our viewers like the WeChat Chatter stories, and this is just hot off the press today. Now you know that there's a lot of discounting going on in America, right? And this is what my cousins in Chicago and have been telling me. They got pretty good discounts there in America. Yeah, it's got 100% discounts in some stores. So what if people can read between the lines? So what's happening is a lot of these stores label stores that have got goods with high labels or high value goods. They've been contacting the manufacturers in China, and they've been actually asking the suppliers of your counterfeit label goods, your counterfeits. They've been asking and stepping up the demand on the counterfeit so that they can have more of the counterfeit goods to be displayed. So when people come in for the 100% discount, snatch and grab and run 100% discount offers, they don't get they take the counterfeit and they don't take the genuine. So the genuine goods, in the conversations that they've been having with these orders, the people placing the orders, these are the people in China are telling us. The conversations are really funny because it was your typical crime side of things or dodgy side of things. It was, do you want to buy a watch? Do you come around to the back lane and I'll sell you a counterfeit watch or a counterfeit LV bag or Louis Vuitton handbag and all this sort of stuff. All this shady stuff happening in the shady dark part of the building or the laneway. But actually now,
just Edwin, just one point. Your voice there, right? It almost sounds though you know precisely. How do you know precisely? You don't have to answer that.
Well, it's my cousins do live in Chicago. We know the history of Chicago, mate.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Sorry, carry on. I just thought it was really funny.
So, do you want to buy a house?
Now you see. Now you're talking. That's exactly right. Maybe we're onto something here, right? Maybe I should have become a politician. One or the other. Look. So anyway, that's the interesting thing is that the orders that have been coming in are for more counterfeit goods so they can have those on display, and the genuine is actually being sold not at the shop, but basically in the back alley. But the legitimate transactions have been taken to the back alley. It's bizarre. It's funny. It is, and what that actually means is that we're actually forcing China to produce more bad quality goods.
So we're making them regress to how it was 15 years ago.
Oh, it's crazy. Like you said, up and down. Down is up is down, who knows? Yeah. Now, let's go on and talk about briefly. You touched on numbers briefly, but let's just make sure we're clear on that, right? So there have been some slight moves in terms of seasonality, but the trajectory is still very strong, isn't it, with regard to listings numbers?
That's correct. Again, given the fact what we've been going through this year and all the uncertainty that unfolded, our listing numbers really retreated to the lowest I think that we've ever seen since domain and real estate came onto were birthed in the late 90s, early 2000s. This is just it was just unprecedented to see hello and then obviously then FOMO set in and people were jumping out of the skin to buy something, and I think that they bought if they didn't buy with an upside, they really bought prematurely. Then when the numbers surged in 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, numbers cranked up, and we met 2020's peaks, not with freestanding homes. We're only a few hundred off with the freestanding homes. The narrative all around changed, and the chatter around changed. But what I'm seeing now, obviously, is just a seasonal regression of numbers, which is which is expected, because not a lot of people want to have their homes coming through the homes during the silly season, during the Christmas period, end of year, and agents want to go on holidays, and also your lawyers and conveyancers obviously also go and take a break as well. So generally from the 23rd, 24th of December to the 17th, not a lot gets done by way of conveyancing, or the legal eagles take the big break. But I think, as I said before, I believe our agents are going to be working. A lot of agents are going to be working right through the Christmas break, the end of year break, and more so the ones that are holding on to the apartment listings. So don't start to panic when you see the listings retreat a little bit. I say don't panic, but more so what we've got to do is keep an eye on the new listings that are coming on, the ones that have come on in the last week or so from last week. The transition happened about a week and a half ago from your highs. Now we started retreating about a week and a half ago. Now, but keep an eye on the new listings, because the motivation to if they're listing at the end of the year, particularly if you're looking for homes, it tells me that vendors are more motivated to sell, and agents are going to be even more motivated to take offers pre-auction to their vendors, as well as you're going to get perhaps a better deal even post-auction if it gets past in, Martin. And one of the other things that I've noticed with the numbers for this week, as I do the snapshots on Mondays to gauge what happens during the week, obviously the auctions they're listed in advance. So the auction numbers for Sydney are very high, almost as high as the peak of last week. But when you look at the Melbourne auction listing numbers, I think I think that's the highest that Melbourne's ever had this year. The highest amount of properties going to auction. So that tells me that the Victorians want a quick sale and they want out. So they're going to be, the vendors are even more motivated to get out because of Big Bad Dan.
Motivated seller must do this. Yeah, very interesting.
Must escape Victoria.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, try and tunnel their way out. All right, well, let's go on and look at a couple of quick articles. The first one is a real shocker, right? Because basically the argument now is property is so expensive, you can't find anywhere close into where you might need to work. So, essential workers, well, maybe what we should do is offer them really, 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 really small places to buy, right? Or maybe to rent, right? I mean, this is ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, it is. Look, 12 square meters is what the article alludes to in this. Basically, it's just a boarding house. 12 square meters. That's your average main bedroom in a house now. 3 meters by 4 meters. That's your 12 square meters, and that's meant to. What if it's a couple that live there? Obviously, you're not going to be able to fit more than a queen size bed at best. Then you've got to accommodate your shower and facility, your shower, toilet, your bathroom facility, and then your kitchen. Obviously, you're going to be that's just going to be an arm's length away from where you're sleeping. So it's Japanese style of living. It's the minimalistic, and it's crazy. But I guess what we also got to do is look at the article in the broader context. It's a nice headline, and it does pull a lot of viewers and does pull your attention. But what they're talking about is an apartment or style development, Elizabeth Bay. So obviously you're looking at places like the city, your central hubs, where your your commercial hubs, let's say the city, your North Sydney, your Chatswoods, your Hurstville's, and all these areas, I guess, but more so your centre of Sydney, where the price of property is very high, that your essential workers just been priced out, and they've got to commute a very long way. So now I know from a number of people that I've spoken to that are involved with, there are essential workers. They're either, the public servants in different fields, in the police force and that. They're looking for transfers. If they're closer to the city, they were closer to the city. Last time I spoke with them, they were looking for transfers further out to the outskirts of Sydney, so that they can have the space and still be close to work. Because obviously there are needs just as much outside, in the fringes, as there are of the cities, and there are in the city itself. So I guess we got to look at it in that type of context, where the city has just become too expensive or anywhere near close to the CBD. So we go back to point number 2 in this article, Martin, and that is that maybe this is maybe high-rise Harry it wasn't crazy after all in converting, wanting to convert the commercial space that is being left vacant by what the states have done to businesses and the like. And there's all this commercial space that's being vacant, and it's maybe that's where the government should be looking into, rather than looking at other options.
Well, it certainly needs some different thinking. I mean, they've really stuffed up the centres of towns big time over the last 20 to 30 years with bad planning and, way too much of the wrong type of building. Maybe it's time for them to make amends.
Yeah, look, and we're not sure that, there's, if you look at what we've been talking about, what's up is down. What's up with the in the New South Wales Planning Division is insanity, and what's down is common sense. So,
well, there's not much of that around. I mean, we could do with a large infusion of common sense across our planning processes and systems, but that's a whole another story. But we should just touch this other article before we close, and that is to do with the continued collapse of construction-related companies. Right? I mean, this is now getting serious. This is, it's not just one or two; it's quite a few, and some of the bigger ones too.
Well, that's right. This is an article that was on the Courier Mail that Laura Roberts, one of our followers on Twitter, put the handle there for she's always actively looking in what happens in Queensland. She gives me a lot of information, and she tagged me on this tweet, and it's a really interesting read. And I encourage people to go and read it, and read it in its whole context. And this is, and it's on point with what you and I have been talking about for a long time now, Martin. Is that it's apart from the companies coming unstuck, and these building companies coming unstuck with these building contracts that they can't fulfill, that they can't complete because of obviously material shortages, the supply chain issues, all the rise in costs because of those issues. And we've shared a lot in the past with how these building contracts have just absolutely blown out by 150% in some cases. And some of our followers have tagged us on Twitter with what they've seen, what they've experienced. But I thought it was interesting that in this article they also point out to the shortage of tradies, the lack of tradies, and more to the point, as what our WeChat Chatters have been telling us for a long time now, is that the little brothers that help as labourers, they're gone home, and they're in the process of going home, and they're wanting to go home because they really can't continue to work under their ghost visa status. They're overstayed student visas, or they're overstayed visitors visas, tourist visas that they've had. These ghost tourist status migrants that we've got. Now they're going back because they've become targets in the in the construction sector, because as you know, the more controls with the mandates and the the regulations that the New South Wales government have brought on. There's more inspections happening, and obviously when you're going to have more inspections, more issues along construction, they don't want to get lose all the savings what they've made, what they were able now to take back home, and they've really been getting on a plane and skedaddling out of Australia. So these are the issues moving forward. 2022, I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's got to get worse. And in a way, I think things have got to break before they can be fixed.
Well, talking about break and fix, of course, the other interesting question, you've got these half-completed projects, right, which the builder isn't going to be able to complete because the builder's fallen over. But that creates a huge liability for anybody else wanting to pick it up and complete it, doesn't it? I mean, because you've got to basically inherit all the defects from the earlier construction processes that you probably aren't across.
Yeah, look, in my previous life, I was involved with some liquidators in the city, and I would get called out to look at half-finished projects and try to find builders to take over the projects. And the biggest concern that obviously the builders have is being able to warrant what the foundations, and you can't do that unless you literally tear it all down and start from scratch. Or if you're going to take a risk, it's a huge risk, and you've got, as you said, insurance issues because you've got a warrant. So once you take over and you complete and you sell, you can't just walk away from the structural guarantees and the if it's a dwelling that comes under the all those warranties that the high-rise developers get away from because it's above four levels. So if you're below 4 levels and you pick up these half-finished projects, well, you're stuck there for 6 years as a builder, let alone your subdivisions and homes. And I think what a lot of these companies in Queensland is they're not so much in the high-rise development, but they're more in the subdivision sectors that are going under. So yeah, it's a huge problem. So yeah, like the question that she raised was that she asked me on Twitter was, would this mean more listings? It could mean more listings, but it'll be if they do go on market, it'll be pretty much uncompleted sites or uncompleted projects. But I think what she was alluding to was more what Laura was alluding to was more given the fact that there's a lot more companies going into liquidation with the directors and the office holders that also become liable for the debts and in case maybe shareholders in there as well become lose all their assets. Obviously the banks will walk into the properties, but on that side of the equation, as I said, because of the delays in the legal system, we're not going to see the effects of that side of things till possibly 2 or 3 years time. But yeah, we could end up with a lot of projects. But I'll be interested to see what's going to happen in 2022 with these with the new subdivisions and these projects, and also these builders that won't be able to complete their projects here in Sydney in 2022.
Well, it reminds me of that video you showed us the other week with half-finished projects up in China, right, where basically the individual owner was taking it over in a half-finished state and then actually completed it, right? Maybe there's room for some of those.
Well, look, that is a very, very ingenious way, and that is how these Evergrandes and all these other companies are basically selling to the first-time buyers, and this is a way for them to save money. This is you could say it's a government-backed initiative. It's an interesting way. Yeah, you get the shell, and you get to fit it out by yourself. So basically, they're saving. Well, they're not really saving but it just means that for 35% of the value from the value of a completed dwelling, they're able to save that or not pay for that until later on down the track as they raise more money. And these are the what a lot of the mainstream media in the Western world had misinterpreted by having these huge drops in prices, and they were talking about huge drops in prices in the Chinese market and this and that, and without knowing that, not necessarily that there's a huge drop in prices, that the builders were selling, purposely selling, supported by the local governments, selling unfinished units, albeit they got a shell and they got basically the shell and all the fittings, but they didn't get the fixtures to go with it, or the flooring and the finishes. So you finish that at your own will in your own time.
Yeah, well, could be. There you go. Interesting suggestion. And tip of the week, Edwin, before we close, tip of the week.
Well, tip of the week is, and this is for our Melbournians. Look at your numbers on market very, very closely moving forward. Not only because of because of what I saw on the auctions that are coming up this week, the Saturday coming, over 1,900 are listed to go to market by way of auction. Not only that, but it's also because of if you look at the population growth rate, Australia and the states and territories year ending 31 March 2021. Victoria isn't looking too healthy, Martin. Everyone wants to escape. So I'd say that the vendors in Melbourne are very highly motivated. So your Christmas may have come for our Melbournians. So look at the numbers, the new listings on market, follow them very closely for the areas that you're interested in, and if they get past 10, you've got a good shot. That's for our Melbournians. And obviously for Sydney-siders, the same. Just don't go, look, it is the silly season, but just don't go too crazy out there. And look, for our Sydney-siders, what I'm going to say is, if you want to win, come out a winner at an auction, not necessarily getting the property, but be the first bidder, unless you get a bottle of wine. There's a tip. At least you can say that you became a winner. But unfortunately, because there's this whole thing of the way the market's moving, the agents, the selling agents, bastards, they're not giving it to the first bidder in most cases now. They're giving it to the actual person that the wins the bid, to incentivize them to pay more.
Well, of course, cutting down on costs and reducing the amount of stuff, all part of the same story. Edwin, I appreciate your time tonight. Very important, very interesting messages here. And we'll do it all again next week. It may be the silly season for some, but we'll be back next week.
Definitely, and we'll definitely have a heads up on what happens to those listings, because those auctions for the grassroots level, the ones that we're chasing, I'll report on those next Monday, and it's getting interesting by the day. So I'll have those reports for you for Monday, because the auctions are this weekend, and it's going to be fun and games.
Look forward to that, and we'll do it all again next week, Edwin. Thanks very much. See you later.
All the best, Martin.
Bye.